Hope Georgie shows up because she'll know exactly where I'm at. Welcome to the New Jersey Turnpike, Interstate 95. I'm headed southbound, going to my second stop, Monrovia, Maryland, north of D.C., which is one place I do not want to go. I really don't like going to D.C. at all. We'll get to it in a minute. Sorry for those who watching the replay. Just bear with me. As the stupidity continues. Literally. Oh, we can cover the one that I did a few days ago about the blind man in Indianapolis, Indiana. Purposely went into the government building and applied for a concealed carry license. No question. They knew he was blind. They issued it to him. I'm like, really? Might as well just handed him a driver's license. But while they were at it. But the gentleman didn't have a gun and he really wasn't interested in it. He wanted to see what was going to happen and to prove a point. Like I try telling everybody, all this crap that they come up with is all a distraction. But now it's really, really getting stupid. Oh, but this new one that went through yesterday, y'all can look this up and Google it if you want. Life begins at erection. Ah, there we go. I don't know why I was buffering there. No, the world isn't. Just my country is. It's worse than anywhere else in the world. Now, I love my country. The country is no problem. It's the people who are running it is the problem. And they're not America. But a lot of people say if you talk against, you know, Mr. President Ass Gas, you hate America. Well, let me tell you something. That person is not America. He's an American citizen, just like I am. He has his complaints, and I have mine. And his complaints aren't worth 2 cents. My complaints affect everybody, good or bad. Well, the ignorant law, life does not begin at conception anymore. Life begins at erection now. How they did this, I have no idea. Where's the logic behind it? Don't look for any because there's no logic behind that. Okay, life begins at erection. Well, what if the guy has sex with the woman and doesn't have an erection because he can't get hard? Does that still count? Are we going into detail? Do we have to really, dig into people's bedroom life? That's really going to help the massive American people, and not only that, the people in the world. That's really going to help everybody. That's really going to make an impact on people's lives. No, it's not. It's all a distraction. I'm like, if you really want to fix the real problem, let's talk about our economic system. And how about changing it so it works for everybody instead of the small few? They're never going to build that. They're never going to complete it because that's a big waste of money and time. Because you show me a 50-foot wall like he wants to build, I don't care how high he wants to make the wall. I'll show him a ladder that'll get over it, or a couple of shovels that will dig underneath it. Even the Chinese built the Great Wall of China that's still standing to this day, thousands of years old. It was like a fortress. And the Chinese will tell you when he said, I want to build a wall, the Chinese would say it just like this: that'll never fucking work. The Chinese built that to keep the Mongols out. Did it work? Nope. It's kind of funny. Our country back in '89, when Mr. Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And we're wanting to build one? We're wanting to make our southern border like East Germany? No. I live in the most hypocritical country in the world. I could find a bum laying on the streets in downtown Manhattan, 40 miles behind me, that could run the country better than our douchebag that we got right now, or any other douchebag we've had in the past 20 years, or 25 years at that. I could probably go back further than that. No, Trump in England is a word for fart. That's why I call him President Assgas. Or a hemorrhoid in a human form is another good one. But it was the state of Ohio that did that, my home state. Life begins at erection. Is that going to help people get food in their mouth? Is that going to get the homeless off the street? Is that going to give people a good paying job? No, this is all stupidity. I'm like, okay, how are you going to enforce this law? You're going to bust in everybody's, bedroom in the middle of the night? Jesus. Look, I don't care what anybody does in their bedroom. I don't care about gay, trans, or lesbian, or whatever they call it, bilingual. I don't know. I don't care what those people do. I'm not in on what they do. I don't care what they do. I don't care what anybody does. As long as nobody's getting hurt, I can give a rat's ass. All I know is I'm not in on it. Now, if I was in on something, I'd be like, I don't want to do this, and walk out, point blank. But everybody wants to make a big issue of all this bullshit because they can't find any other scapegoat. So we don't talk about the real issues. Got to thank this president for taking us back to the dark ages. He's 80 years old and wants to take us back to the 60s. I'm like, up yours. Nobody wants to go back to the 60s. That was before I was born anyway. especially looking at you, the state of Arizona, taking us back to a territorial law before you were a state. That's pretty freaking sad. If you want to make a law about abortion, you can't have a law that existed over 2 centuries ago. We kind of moved forward and we've advanced. We don't want to continue to live in the dark ages. Like I said, this is all about power and control, and it has nothing to do with freedom. So the freedom thing can go right out the door when you come talking about this country. Let's put it this way. You're as free as about as much money you have in your pocket or bank account. Because shit, Donald Trump proved that, and a lot of billionaires that were taken to court. Shit, they even get convicted and still don't serve the time. Shit, they get convicted, they don't serve the time, and they become president of the United States. That ought to tell you how much of a joke my country is. Or let's put it this way, not my country. The people that live, I got to share a country with. So I'm suffering through the world as I see it. People should have the right to do anything they want. And plus, when it comes to medical, they wrote the law that there's privacy involved. The only people that should be involved and have knowledge of this is your doctor and the patient itself. No one else should know about what's going on with them. It's like the same thing with a lawyer and his client. It's called confidentiality. If a woman's going in to see her OBYGN and there's a problem with this conception that she has, that it can risk her life if she carries this child to term. Well, she needs an abortion. That's nobody's fucking business. And that's a confidentiality law. They wrote that long ago. So that protects the doctor and the patient. What are we going to do in the future? Have our police officers carry a sonogram in their freaking car? Oh my God. This is really getting stupid. Don't believe I'm an American politician. Almost every one of them is full of shit. That's the glue that binds us together as Americans. Bullshit. A big steaming pile of bullshit. There's somebody would come up to the panel. Let's have a conversation here. I wish I was on my laptop. I would show you some videos of a lot of farmers that voted for this at President Ass Gas, and now they're paying the price like everybody else. Now they eliminated foreign aid and all aid. Well, the farmers are facing this now too, and a lot of them are crying and pissing and moaning about it on YT. Isn't one of the platforms. And the young kid that runs that cattle farm, he's going to end up losing. He says, "Oh, well, I don't care about anything else. You just take care of the contract that I had." No, that tells you all the selfishness in this country. Freedom for thee, but not freedom for me, but not for thee. Yeah, take care of me and screw everybody else. No, no, no. You're alongside everybody else, and you voted for it. And I'm going to say again, how does that mushroom dick feel without KY? Because that's exactly what he did to you. Thank God it hasn't hit me yet. The only thing that bothers me is the inflation, because everybody's facing that. I really, really would like, wish you guys could see it. If you look it up on YouTube, farmers. That young kid was really putting it out there. It's like, well, motherfucker, I don't feel sorry for him. He loses his farm. That's his fault. He voted for it. I didn't. You reap what you sow. But you see, people like him think that none of that was going to happen to him. Oh, but it did. But see, that's the way a lot of Americans are. They're so individualistic, it's ridiculous. Not all of them, but there's a good portion of them that only think of themselves and nobody else. Well, if it doesn't bother me, I don't give a shit. Well, it really doesn't. No, but we got the mass majority and a lot of people living on the streets. And oh, by the way, our unemployment rate right now, people that are unemployed, we have finally reached the 1929 crash level. We're at 25% unemployment. And that's what it was during the Great Depression. And you know what? It's getting worse. If there is a Great Depression, it's happening now. It's just a lot of people are not unaware of it, especially the ones that it doesn't affect. Excuse me. And then these same people will tell you when you bring Jesus into the conversation or God, they'll try to out Jesus you and say how Christian they are. I'm sorry, you cannot be a Christian and be so individualistic. Ellie, do me a favor, send the link to share because a lot of people don't get my notifications. Oh, and by the way, a plane crashed in Toronto. Now everybody is, you know, attuned to every plane crash that's going to happen to say it's some kind of conspiracy. Yeah, every decision he has made, and boy, he made a lot of them. I never seen a president day one get elected and day one in office sign so many executive orders. Never. Not that many. He signed so many. But the ones that I see signing executive orders is the Republican presidents. The Democrats, I never see them use executive orders. So that ought to tell somebody something that they don't have your interest at heart. Yeah, the Republicans are going to sign a bunch of executive orders, but are it going to help you? No. Democrats, are they going to sign any executive orders? No, because they can't follow through on what they promised, and neither can the Republicans. Why? Because they're paid off by the same corporations and the rich. It's like this: you go and gamble in the Super Bowl, there are two teams. If you gamble on both teams, no matter who wins, you win. And it's been that way for as long as I've been living. I even asked some of those MAGA people, so what have you gotten since your so-called president won the election? You treat it like the freaking Super Bowl now, red against blue. What did you get out of it? Yeah, you got a red hat that you had to pay for. You didn't get nothing. Just like when your favorite team wins the championship, what do you get out of it? Yeah, you get a T-shirt or a hat and or both that you had to pay for, which I don't mind. Ugh. It's just a freaking. It's so stupid. No, if you want to fix the problem, you don't bring in the richest man in the world who's a part has this company called Douche or whatever you want to call it, Douche, and try to fix things. No, that's not how you do it. And you can easily find the best economists in the world. You bring them in, and they'll seriously fix your issues. I know too that I would appoint right away. If I was president, I would appoint Professor Richard Wolff if he would do it, but because he's retired, and I would tell them, I don't have a right to ask you this because you should be enjoying a long retirement, but the country is in dire straits. I mean, we're talking real dire straits. Would you do it? I know he would do it with a smile on his face, and he would say, "It's about time." He's one of the best economists in the world. The other one I try to steal from Greece because he's no longer a part of Syriza, and I think he still teaches. But I would bring him in with Professor Richard Wolff, Yanis Varoufakis. He was the finance minister who stood up against the EU, and he made them look like a bunch of horses' asses, and rightfully so. That wasn't too hard to do. I like what they told when he was standing with his colleagues there in Brussels. He goes, colleagues, I am here and we have an obligation, but I have a mandate from the Greek people that we want to end this. We don't want to do this anymore. And Volkshaw, in the that was part of that big group of colleagues, economics. He said one sentence: elections must not be allowed to change the economic policies to Greece. And so Giannis said, well, let's end democracy. Because a lot of the other governments in the world believe the same thing, but let's just go ahead and end democracy. The people voted, and I'm here to do that job. Because it's called democracy. It's a terrible thing. And he goes, okay, how about we just put it up to a vote to the Greek people and what they want? That's called a referendum. That's called direct democracy. Everybody has a vote on it. And then he says again, do you mean you want to put the average Greek person to make a decision on complicated matters? And he goes, yes, it's called democracy. It's a terrible thing. Yeah, only a few states have that direct democracy. Oregon is one of those. I don't know of any others. But what happened is there was a shortfall on revenue to the state of Oregon. And a lot of states were cutting civil services and cutting jobs, people that work for the public. Like your trash, people that clean up the trash, people that fix the roads, your DOT officers and stuff like that. And police, firemen, all that. They decided they weren't going to cut civil services. They decided to raise the taxes of corporations and the rich. So the corporations and the rich sent some people out to get signatures, and I don't know how many you got to get, but the government signed it and the governor signed it. Now they can have a referendum, is what they did. They went out and collected the signatures, and they put up the vote to the people of state of Oregon. 1.2 million Oregonese voted on that overwhelmingly to agree with the governor and the government of Oregon to raise taxes on corporations and the rich. That would cover the shortfall. Now, this tit for tat thing, everybody say, well, they'll just pack up and leave. Yeah, that's a tit for tat thing. That you make it sound so easy. You can do that. You can pack up and move to another state. But I got to warn you, it's very expensive. And when you do that, who's to say that the state that you move to isn't going to do the same thing later on down the road? So very little movement of the corporations and the rich of Oregon. So everybody thinks it ends the conversation. Well, they'll just move. Well, they can, yes. But it's very expensive. And that's why Oregon doesn't have problems with their highways or trash collection or police or firemen that they need. Not a problem at all in that state. But some other states do. It's not easy to move to Canada either. That would be nice because it ain't too much different than here, with the exception. What makes living in Canada better is them having universalized health care. That means you're not going to go bankrupt. Even with the best insurance you can get in this country, you're going to go bankrupt. And it's your patriotic duty. If you can't pay for it, that child's going to die, or your parent, or whatever. And that tells you the Christianity of these people. At the same time, after they just said that, they'll tell you how Christian they are. I mean, the hypocrisy in this country is just overflowing. And how dare I point that out? But these small issues that is in the news and constantly talked about isn't going to help anybody's situation. It's not going to make anybody's situation any better. It's only going to get worse. It only has gotten worse. How many years do we got to do this Texas two-step every 4 to 8 years? Wobble back to the right, wobble back to what you call the left, which we don't have a left in this country. You can call it that, but we don't have a left. If we had a left in this country, the majority of the jobs would not have moved out, and we wouldn't have so much unemployment. You ask somebody in Europe about our political system over here, they'll tell you, you can call it that, but y'all don't have a left. The Democratic Party is a right-wing party, and it's true. Bill Clinton moved the Democratic Party to the right, and the Republicans saw that, and they moved further to the right. It went insane. Do I need to explain any more now? You look at the Republican Party and how they're doing things, it's insanity. And I tell people this that think that they're a Republican just like Mr. Trump, that they're just like he is. Name me something since 1970, which was the year I was born. Name me something from 1970 that was positive for the working class majority people here in the United States. I'm still waiting for someone to answer that because you won't find any. Because I purposely spent the time, I spent weeks on this trying to find any inkling of anything positive for the working class. You won't find it because I already tried. And back to this life begins at erection. That's hilarious. That's a joke in itself, but it's true. They don't realize that you don't have to be totally erect to screw a woman. Like I was only half hard, so does that count? Don't listen to me. If you don't believe me, just Google it like everybody else does. Because when you hear some MAGA person that supports the Republican Party, you got to do your research. Yeah, your research, douchebag, is Google. You Google everything and you accept it as God. Well, I wouldn't do that because Google isn't always accurate and isn't going to be accurate. Now, sometimes it is, but for the most part, I wouldn't trust it. Go to a library, pick up a book on the issue, and read it. You know, turning the pages, smelling how old the paper is, gives off an odor. But people don't want to pick up books and read them anymore. I mean, there's reading and there's really reading. I'm like 50 Shades of Grey to literature is what candy corn is for vegetables. Figure that comparison out. But same time, this is going to be funny and sad at the same time, and all the punishment we're going to endure until the American people stand up and said, "We've had enough of this bullshit." Grab your rifle, and as many friends that's got rifles, the more people, the better. You show up in D.C. with at least 100,000 people with a rifle, you just outnumbered all the police, all the Secret Service, and whatever military they have there. You outnumbered them. And it's our constitutional right to do that because it's written in the Second Amendment. We have the right to bear arms to rise up against our government when it is not operating for the people, because it's not operating for the people. Me, I wouldn't mind doing it, but I don't want to be staring out there with my ass hanging in the breeze and being the only one. And I'll even lead it from the front if I have to. It's just there better be a lot of people behind me. I need somebody up here on the panel. I'm going to Monrovia, Maryland. It's north of Washington, D.C. It's still in the blast range. If it were to get nuked, I'm far away enough to see maybe the flash and then hear it, but then I'd be like, what was that noise? But I'm still in the blast range of it. You hear the boom and like, what the hell was that? That's why I don't like going to DC. Me, I prefer to be out in the middle of the desert, like a Death Valley, where there's nothing for hundreds of miles. Most likely, a nuke won't drop out there. Oh, and this, they changed the name to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, I'm not joining in on their fantasy because just because he wanted to change it and said it, where's his authority to change that or to change anything else? Yeah, the people who own Google Maps changed it because they own it. It's a private entity. And they probably voted for his nasty ass. So they're going to go along with his fantasy. And they're the same people that don't want to go along with the fantasy of some man that wishes to be a woman that is trans. Well, I'm not going to join in your fantasy. Exactly. I'm not going to join in your fantasy about changing the name of Gulf of Mexico. It'll still remain the Gulf of Mexico. My children will still refer it as the Gulf of Mexico. If we wanted to change it to anything, how about we change it to the Gulf of Mr. Asshole, or the Gulf of Orange Asshole? That would be good. And then again, I tell these MAGA people, did that change your life? Did it make it any better? Do you feel any better? Did it make improve your life or your standard of living? Probably made you feel good for a little while, but a lot of people are not going to buy into that fantasy. So you can call it what you want. For a few hundred years, it's been known as the Gulf of Mexico, and it will stay that. What people don't realize is Donald Trump's got a big pile of shit, a steaming pile of shit. And he's standing in front of it and telling you, isn't it wonderful? And I didn't want the other administration either, just to let them other people know this if they watch this video. I voted for Jill Stein. And for that MAGA lady, that fat ass old woman wearing that MAGA crap saying that the silent majority has spoken. No, they have not. The silent majority is the over 2/3 of the registered voters of America did not vote. That's your silent majority because they weren't going to vote for either party. If they would have voted Jill Stein, we would probably have Jill Stein as president, which is an independent. Because this wobbling back to the left and right, doing the Texas two-step every 4 to 8 years, wobble back to the right, wobble back to the left, and nothing ever gets done. It's just one big circle jerk. Less than 1/3 of registered voters actually voted in this election. It's just the majority chose President Ass Gas again. And they're going to get what they paid for. It hasn't affected you yet, but it will. When's those price of eggs going to come down, which I don't eat anyway? It doesn't bother me, the price of eggs, but it does bother everybody else, so I'm concerned about it. Just because it doesn't affect me doesn't mean it isn't a problem. Because some people eat eggs, and they used to be cheap. $10 for a dozen of eggs? Oh, man. You'd be better off buying a bunch of hens and building a huge thing that looks like a dog house and put your hens in it. Have them lay eggs for you. Ugh. Boy, I blew through that toll booth really quick. That's why it's good to have Best Pass. It covers all of them. It used to be just pre-pass. Oh, no. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no. The pre-pass was for way stations. The majority of them are easy pass, but the Best Pass covers all the others in the country that are not easy pass. So those are the only two indicators I got taped to my windshield. I used to have pre-pass, but it's no longer needed because it goes through the QC now. But pre-pass got put out of business thanks to the Qualcomm company. I remember the commercials on that Sirius XM Road Dog Trucking Radio. Sirius XM 147. Guy'd come out with that heavy voice. Pre-pass. Blow by way stations. Fly by port of entry facilities. With the guy without pre-pass waits in line. Save time. Save money. Dial 888-599-PASS. Try pre-pass for free. Dial 888-599-PASS. That tells you how many times I've heard that damn commercial. Because I can even remember the freaking phone number. And I haven't listened to Sirius XM radio probably 5 years now. Even about the TA and Petro, same guy doing the commercial. TA and Petro have the best coffee on the highway. These beans mean business. I'm wound and bound so tight as a spring arm on my tractor. But that coffee will loosen you up. That's the beauty about drinking coffee if it affects you that way. You drink a glass of Colombian, and 5 minutes after that Colombian coffee, you take a shit. Because coffee is what they call a diuretic. It can cause that for some people. It doesn't me. It makes me belch and happen to piss. No matter what I drink, within about 15, 20 minutes of drinking it, I got to take a piss. This is the border here, over to my right, which you can't see, barely, but you wouldn't be able to pick it up on the phone here, is the battleship New Jersey. It's one of the last class of that battleship for World War II. There's the New Jersey, North Carolina, Missouri, Wisconsin, and Iowa, and Alabama. I've seen all of them except for the Missouri. The only way you're going to see the battleship Missouri is you're going to have to go to Pearl in Hawaii. And I believe it was the Missouri was the last one that they retired and became a museum because it was in that movie Under Siege with Steven Seagal. Anyway, I'm crossing over the river and coming into, I believe it's Delaware. Yeah, Delaware. The northern part of Delaware, the state that people have so much to say about it, but never been there before. And they'll convince you they know what they're talking about. Me, I've been to Delaware and been through all over it. The only thing I can tell you is it's a lot of farmland, a lot of decent people, pleasant. But I didn't think a lot of people would know that. Yeah, there's a lot of nothing but farmland in Delaware, except for this northern part that I'm going through. The only problem I've ever had in Delaware was the guy that right by the port right here that I won't go there anymore. I don't think we have the contract anymore. But the guy in the Garchak wanted to act like a douchebag. I said, you don't really have to talk to me like that. I said, but if you want to, I can join in. Well, I'll ban you from the lot and reject you. I said, you're rejecting the load? I said, it doesn't matter to me if you get the load or not. I still get paid. That's what you need to understand. You can't hurt me. I get paid. That's the whole point. So that means the shipper's going to have to pay me even more to go take it somewhere else that won't reject it. I think that guy that ran that security area lost his job that day because they're not going to put up with somebody messing with business like that. We're talking a lot of money. And I told him, you don't have to talk to me that way, but that's not the way I do business. But I guess he had that New York attitude, and it just costed him his job. But I ain't never going back there again. Taking loads in and out of that port anymore ain't going to cost me a dime. There's plenty of freight always to be had out here. That's why it's nice to be an owner operator. If I was a company driver, they probably wouldn't have done anything after the investigation when they found out that I wasn't at fault for that. But it still goes on my record. But being an owner operator ain't going on my record. Because being an owner operator, sure, they can cancel my contract and say scrape off the DOT number, and we're no longer going to uphold your contract. That means I won't be able to haul freight for them anymore. I can easily go somewhere else. That would take me within the hour. No problem. With my experience and my safety record, they're like, they did that. They would laugh. And they'd be like, uh, we're going to, as I was talking to them, they'd send out one of their mechanics to put a DOT number on the side of my truck without my knowledge. And we're like, you're ready to go. We're going to give you this load here. Go on. Happens every day. And just to let you all know, say I was on a load. This has happened many a time to a lot of trucking companies that they go bankrupt and they tell you, they send you a message or contact you over the phone and say, we know you're on this load. Don't deliver it. Bring the truck to this yard and park the truck and just leave the keys in it. Now, mind you, that's usually guys that are company drivers. Mind you, if they did that and I was a company driver, I'd be like, even if an owner as an owner operator, they'd tell me, drop the trailer here, scrape off your DOT number, and go home. We close business. This has happened to many trucking companies. It happens a dozen times a year. I'd be like, I want paid for this load right now, and if I don't give, I will not relinquish this trailer with the cargo on it until I get paid my portion of what I was going to get paid for on the load. Now, there's been many companies that don't pay. I'm like, you don't pay? I will break open the seal and I'll start selling what's inside there. And I remember one guy did that. He had a bunch of big screen TVs. Sure, they complained to law enforcement. There's nothing they could do about it. Sure, they took him to court, and that was the wrong thing to do because they lost. They're like, he had possession of that load and was supposed to deliver it, and he wanted paid, and you refused to pay him, so he's going to hold the product hostage. And believe me, in the courts, Do you think that they're going to protect the large corporation that's got all the money? They better have a damn good case. If not, they lost. How I know? 'Cause I used to read a lot of case law. It became a hobby, and basically I did it out of boredom. Really, believe me, when you're driving a truck and you're alone, you get bored frequently, and you try to find something to do, and that actually is going to be worth your time. Reading is one of them. Uh, yes, this is northern Delaware here. I'll be in Delaware for just a brief moment, and then I'll be in Maryland. Ugh. A couple things I may do with this. Anyway, I got to deliver this at 4 in the morning tomorrow. So what I might do is, and I might even park early at the Elkton TA, which is a good truck stop that I like, less than 100 miles away. Just park there, leave around midnight tonight, and go in there and deliver it, the rest of this load. I got ice cream. Lieutenant Dan, I got ice cream from the Swans Company. And it's Rocky Road, no doubt. At least that's the only flavor I saw on the labels from the standing on the outside of the trailer when I opened the doors this morning. Oh, it's Rocky Road. I hope the people that are in here, if they're listening to me, that they're being very entertained right now. If I'm entertaining, please let me know. If not, I'll try to do better. Me, I'm just glad to get out of Jersey because it's very expensive in that state. Everything is. You go down to Maryland, it just gets a lot cheaper. Like, I bought, if I bought that plate of biscuits and gravy in the Petro there in Bordentown, yeah, they wanted $15.99 for it. I come down here to the TA, same company, no doubt, same product, and buy that same plate of biscuits and gravy, $5.99. Yes, it's a $10 difference. Now, to my friends that live in the Philippines, that retired, moved there, and married a Filipina, I'm not going to mention the names. You all people probably know who I'm talking about. I have nothing against any of them, but I try to share information. I've warned them, along with everybody else thinking about going and retiring and moving to the Philippines or wherever, mostly in the Philippines. Leave yourself an out. Or are you going to actually trust your wife, regardless of how long you've been married to her? Now, granted, I'm sure that your wife's going to do that, but can you trust her to take care of you the rest of your life? I'm not saying if they will or if they wouldn't. That's a question you need to ask for yourself. And the reason why I say that is, if you've been paying attention, they're wanting to get rid of Social Security. So there goes that portion of your retirement. And that leaves your pension. Well, I'm telling you, the bubble's bursting. And it's going to happen. It's just a question of when. It's a mathematical certainty. And when it does, it's going to explode big time. And this one, like I tell everybody, is going to be a doozy. A lot of people are going to lose their pensions because 9 times out of 10, your pension fund is tied to the stock market. You lose your pensions like those lovely people at Enron who were on the verge of retirement or was collecting and lost it. Thanks to Kenneth Lay. During the court trial, he dies, and George W. Bush was on a sigh of relief because when they made their ruling, George W.'s agreement was he was going to pardon him because he made such a big donation to his campaign. That is painfully obvious. But that's beside the point. But you better hope that your pension's not one of the ones that's going to go down. A lot of pensions are going to go down, and you're going to lose your pension, and then what do you got? 401k? That probably just turned into a turd also with the stock market. Like I said, leave yourself an out so you can get back home. You can get back home. You can take care of things better and or get another job at whatever age you are. I'm sorry to say that. You don't deserve it. You've earned that retirement, but it's not me that's taking it away. What I mean by leaving yourself an out, have some funds stashed away that's going to get you on a plane back home. And hopefully you got kids that can take you in. Because I'm telling you, there is no recovery. It's not going to get any better. There is going to be no miracle. Jesus is not going to save us. Jesus does not love America more than any other country in the world. And in truth, God and Jesus don't give a flying fuck about America, all right? God and Jesus loves us about as much as he loves the Suez Canal, the North Pole, or the South Pole, or Russia. He doesn't love us or hate us any worse. This idea that thinking that we're blessed by him, it's delusional thinking. God bless America? I wouldn't count on it. Are you kidding? The way we treat one another? How individualistic people act? Like that young farmer in that video I wish I could show you. You just take care of my contract for you. I don't care what you do. Yeah, you don't care what he does to anybody else, just as long as it didn't affect him. Yeah, that's because he's individualistic. The cult of the self. He doesn't think of anybody else besides himself. You want to bless that? No, thank you. I don't think Jesus that I learned about would bless that. Thank you very much. How you doing, Jesse? But did you hear, Jesse? In Ohio, the state of Ohio, life begins at erection. Even though some men can still screw and not be completely hard, and something could happen. Doesn't happen at exception or whatever they call that. Life begins does not begin at conception. It begins at an erection in Ohio. Well, I know how they're going to argue that one out. Well, Yana, I wasn't completely hard. So does that still count? The stupidity of it all. And me and you got to live through, well, especially me, because I live in Ohio. I'm like, do I really need to concern myself with what people do in the bedroom? I only concern myself with what I don't do in my bedroom. I'm never in my bedroom. I'm on this freaking truck working all the time. And I got to worry about somebody else, what they're doing. Well, I don't give a shit about them. I'm just asking, where the hell's mine? Wow, I made it here pretty quick. Yeah, I might shut down here and wait till tomorrow. Come on, I know a lot of yous are not and aren't off. There's some of you got to go to work too. Ah, there's a spot. There's not a bobtail stuck in it or a box truck. Yep. Dude, why are you going so slow? Get the fuck out of my way. I got to park next to the fuel island. Yeah, I'm 98 miles away from where I got to deliver. Ugh. But I could probably shift to my laptop and Gomer pile. That still wouldn't do anything because everybody's going to sleep. Or they have to be at work or they're at work. Who's doing a live stream right now? Sean Trucking with BS? Oh, Jesus. The end of the freaking world. He isn't very informative. He picks on government too much. No, man, they set themselves up for the shit. Me? We just got to live with it. Ugh, I got to pull up. I didn't quite make this right. Well, I'm going to act like those MAGA people. Look what happened to you. Now they're the ones that were the farmers that did vote that way. They're crying, "Oh, you ain't supposed to be doing this to me. I didn't vote for this." Yes, you did. The motherfucker even told you what he was going to do when he went in. You just didn't think it was going to affect you. That's what the individualistic ideas get you. Got you in the fine mess that you're in right now. Enjoy. Sad thing is, and there's a lot of people that Americans will tell you this. Yeah, we got a family member. We haven't even talked since 2016. A lot of family members like that, me included. My oldest sister, totally blinded by this douchebag. And she was the same one years ago asking how the German people could have followed Adolf Hitler. And here recently, I had a conversation with her, and I was nice. And I said, Donna, do you remember when you talked to me about that? Because I'm a history major. And I tried to explain to her, you have to understand what was going on in Germany. And you look at what happened in Germany then, and you look at what's happening to us, the similarities are scary. Yeah. People believed in him just like all of these people believe in Donald Trump. You have to understand, why did they become so fanatical? Well, when you pile so many social issues on the mass of people of a country, things erupt, and people will go two directions. They can go to the left, which created the middle class in this country, which we did in 1933 with FDR, or they can go to the right. And what does that give us? People like Donald Trump, Adolf Hitler, and there's some of those idiots that don't understand that they say Adolf Hitler was a left winger. He was not. He was heavily right wing. And to say he was a socialist just because it's in his name is also a joke. No, he wasn't socialist at all. He was capitalist. Where do you think he got all the money to create that German miracle that happened? No, there was no miracle. He got a bunch of financial backing by a lot of companies from England and mostly the United States to be able to do what he did. Because a lot of them people, those companies, were the people in charge were of German descent. Bush family ring a bell? Yeah, they're German descent. I'm 1/4 German descent. And they were Nazi sympathizers. Prescott Bush, George W. Bush's grandfather, was a Nazi sympathizer. He was also the director of Standard Oil. Number two, Standard Oil, Prescott Bush. The Luftwaffe would not have been able to get off the ground. The planes that Germany had would not have been able to get off the ground without tetranol. And that was the main ingredient that they needed so their planes would fly. And you could only get that from one oil company in the world, Standard. Whoopsie! That's why the Bush family has been a treasonous family since that. And it continued with, HW and W. But W was so fucking retarded. He was just out there to protect Cheney because Cheney didn't want to be his running mate. But the agreement was Cheney would do it if they throw W out there. He wasn't going to be responsible for anything that were to happen. They were going to throw W out there, but they were going to protect Cheney. That's why everybody knew it was actually Cheney that was running things, not W. Well, that wouldn't surprise me either, Jesse. I don't know about that. But my question is, okay, they make that law. How are they going to enforce it? They're gonna bust in everybody's bedroom jerking off, or bust in their bathroom and they're jerking off in the tub or the toilet. I mean, come on. How are they gonna enforce this law? It's about mind control and bullshit. And I know a bunch of crazy people that if it was a law, they would purposely go in front of government and just pull his pants down and start jerking his salami right in front of him. I mean, stupid shit like this breeds stupid shit. Well, they'll arrest him. Well, he can claim insanity. He won't go to jail, but he'll go to a mental institution. Because you can't criminalize that. I mean, you can, but it ain't going to work. They're like, that's a mental issue. But when I talk about World War II in Germany, I have a full understanding of why Germany ended up the way it did. Do I blame them? No, it's not entirely their fault. Um, I don't excuse what had happened. I don't excuse that, but I do have an understanding. of why it happened, and partly the information that wasn't relinquished. Because I have to tell people, it wasn't just Jews that died in the concentration camps. We all know it was gay, lesbian, all them other people, disabilities, gypsies, communists were the enemy of the people, and socialists. They were the enemy of the state. I know that's confusing for everybody. Well, he had socialism in his name. That's just like a rhino, a Republican in name only. He had to have that in his party name because then the German people wouldn't have paid attention to him. He had to do that to get elected as president. He didn't become chancellor until later, when Hindenburg was on his deathbed and gave it to him. He didn't want to, but he did it anyway. He consolidated the power, and that'd be the chancellor would be the sole ruler. But in order for him to win over the people and get elected as president, he had to have socialism in his party name. But to call him a socialist, you're bent. But here in America, they see that it's a childish argument, because I even point out to them, and some of the videos you could see of Hitler's speeches, you read some of the banners on the upper deck of the stadium he's talking, you see the banners hanging. It's in German, and I'm like, I know most people don't speak German, but what that sign, and I took a screenshot of it, what that sign is Marxism must die in all forms. Now, if he was socialist, do you think he would have a sign put up that says that? No. So that ought to tell you he wasn't socialist at all. The enemy of the state. Karl Marx was from Germany. He was German, born in Trier, right on the border of France and Germany. They rejected Marxism. When they had the book burnings, what kind of books do you think they were burning? The Bible? Not at all, because these people were Christian. They wouldn't burn the Bible. They were burning literature and Das Kapital. All the books that Marx, his works and everything, they burnt all his works. That's what was burning in those piles of books that they were burning. And these people think that they weren't Christian. Yes, they were. They were mostly Catholic and Lutheran. When you went to a Catholic or Lutheran church in Germany in 1930s, you saw the crucifix on one side of the altar and a swastika on the other side of the altar. See, there's a lot of things that weren't taught or told you that's important information that gives you a better understanding of what's going on. Just like to try to understand why the Soviet Union was our enemy. It was never my enemy. It's just we were told that they were our enemies. Well, they were our allies in fighting Hitler in World War II. And had the Russians not have the pressure on the Eastern Front, our grandfathers would have got slaughtered on the Normandy beach and never made it off alive. The majority of the assets were on the Eastern Front fighting the Russians because they just got overran, and the guys in Stalingrad surrendered. But we had a scary embrace as Russia as our ally. The Soviet Union was our ally. And you went to a post office in the 1940s. You up above the window where you buy your stamps or talk to the postmaster, you saw a picture of Uncle Sam arm in arm with Uncle Joe, which means Joseph Stalin. But you weren't told about that. He was our buddy. But then after the war, My grandfather couldn't no longer talk to his comrades that he made friends with in the Soviet Army. He said, he sat me on his knee when I was little. He said, "Do not believe what they're telling you about the Russians." He goes, "I was friends with many of them in Berlin." Had a couple of shots of vodka with him. That's when he warned me. If you open a bottle in front of a bunch of Russians, be prepared to drink it all. Because you won't see, an open bottle in Russia on a cabinet somewhere. When they open a bottle, they drink it. It's still, that hasn't been proven, Jesse. It's still speculation. I do know he was given things for his Parkinson's. He had Parkinson's, and he also had, I believe it was either Crohn's or colitis, because he really didn't eat meat. And he tried to eat some things that wouldn't affect his gut. But there are sometimes it doesn't matter what you eat, it's still going to bother you. And he'd always have intestinal problems. And my brother has Crohn's. And I believe he had Crohn's disease, not colitis. Because Crohn's that's a calling card for Crohn's disease. Doesn't matter what you eat, it just tears your gut up. And there's been a lot of misconceptions about the Germans. This Heil Hitler shit, they never said that. That's an American thing. And even if the Germans would have said it, it would have sounded ridiculous. Because in the German language, like most languages, they put the subject first, then the adjective. But here in the English language, we always put the adjective before the subject. Heil Hitler, they'd never said that. If they did, it would have been Hitler Heil. But I'm telling you, whenever they did the salute like that, if they said anything, it was Selig Heil. In the English language, Hail Victory. And the way they say it, if it's translated in proper English, would be Victory Hail. That's an American thing, the Hitler salute. And it's actually a Nazi salute. But mind you, your grandparents or your parents like mine, when they went to school until like in the 1940s, when they said the Pledge of Allegiance, it was totally different than what you know of it of today. And they used to extend their hand out just like the Nazis did when they saluted in Germany in that time, when they said the pledge. And the pledge was different back then than what you know it of today. And so because of what was going on in Nazi Germany, we changed it and moved our hand over our heart. It's like a lot of things we did in America. And the biggest one, the one that I complain about the most, is, I'm sure you know about the celebration of May Day. May Day is a holiday celebrated. The entire world celebrates, except for this one. The United States is the only one that don't celebrate it. And what's the irony thing about this whole thing is the whole world celebrates that holiday, which origin is the United States, which is the only country that don't celebrate it. How did it get started? It started in Chicago, my home city, where they call it the Hay Riots. There really wasn't much of a riot. It was a protest about changing the labor laws that capitalism was fighting against. They wanted to end childhood labor. They wanted to shorten the workday up to 8 hours. But during the protest, a couple of police officers were killed, and they arrested a bunch of anarchists and hung them for that crime. And they didn't know if they got the right people or not that did it anyway. It was all a frame up. There was a big argument about it, but it was a big protest of the entire city about the working class. And it became a holiday called May Day. But our anti-communism since 1940, 50, and 60, the anti-communism was so intense in this country that we ended May Day and moved it to Labor Day. I mean, this is childish shit, but we live in it, Jesse. And plus, we got people to vote against their own interest. How dare we celebrate a holiday for the working class, which is you and I? But I harp on that because that was one of the biggest irony in the world, practically in the known universe. The whole world celebrates a holiday which origin is the United States, which is the only country that don't celebrate it. And we were taught to not like the reality of communism. We were taught to not like a caricature. Because mostly when you talk to just about every American in this country, you mention the word communism. It's one of those buzzwords. They can't tell you what it really is. You'll get different stories. Some of them are pretty similar, but you're like, that's not what communism is. I'm sorry to tell you, because nobody wanted to sit you down and tell you the truth about what really communism is. We used to demonize the Soviet Union flag, the hammer and the sickle under the North Star. I mean, you as American, Jesse, did you ever think about what that meant? Of course not. Because if you understood what it meant, it was for you and me. But the elite, corporations, and the rich in this country don't want you to have any kind of support like that because it's against their interest. So they're going to demonize it. The hammer. Who uses the hammer? A worker. The sickle. Who typically used that antique tool that you don't have to use anymore? But what is the symbol of? Farming. Yeah. That was the flag of the Russian Revolution. Workers and farmers of the world unite under the North Star. Workers and farmers of the world unite. And we're supposed to believe that that's the most evil symbol in the world. It's because we didn't, our elite didn't agree with their revolution because of what they fought for, just like Cuba. Batista was the dictator, and an evil one at that. Castro led an army and a revolution to overthrow his ass. Well, in Russia in 1917, Lenin did the same thing. They overthrew the Tsar. The Tsar sent the Cossacks in to break up the major protest in Red Square. When the Cossacks got there, they flipped to the other side and said, we're not going to shoot our own people. So the Tsar had to advocate on a train. But those revolutions don't count. They were evil. But when it comes to our revolution, oh, that's fine. We're trying to get away from the King of England. We're fine. Well, they did the same thing. And France, their revolution was just fine. They overthrew the king and left their economic system of feudalism and went to capitalism because they believed it would usher in liberty and equality and fraternity. And that was the work of Karl Marx. He was the first generation after the French Revolution. And he learned that capitalism was unable to bring it. but it was an obstacle to ever achieving liberty, equality, and fraternity. And his work was to explain why not, and he did. And if you read his works, it's not that hard. Just don't do what I did. I'm the only one in history to read Das Kapital and break my toe. Because I got pissed off, I slammed the book shut and threw it on the floor, and it hit my foot. Because my eyes are open like that, and I have things I should have learned in school that all of us should have known, it would have saved our country a lot. And if we did, back in the day, our country would not be in the shape it's in right now, because we wouldn't allow the jobs to move overseas. That would have never happened. No, we're not getting bigger. We have, we're not. We actually are less because we gave the Philippines back to the people. We used to rule the Philippines. That was one of our territories. I can't remember what year it was, but we gave the Philippines back to the people. Um, we still have other territories, but we're not going to give those up. Now, they're known as territories, but if you go into a court of law, they will tell you and look you right in the eye and say, those are states. They're just not states of the Union. Big difference. Language is very important in courts. Guam, the Virgin Islands, and whatever territory, the American Samoa, all those territories we have, they are states, just like Hawaii and Alaska were territories. We only had 48 states in the 1940s. They were states, they just weren't state of the Union yet. And when they brought Alaska in, they looked at the tax law and said, oh, they're no longer covered under 7701A10. That makes it to where you're discluded from having to pay taxes or certain taxes, mainly the income tax. And then they brought in Hawaii. Oh, they're no longer covered under 770A10. So that left Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Guam, those are states. They're just not states of the Union. Meaning they can vote, they can move anywhere in the United States. They're an American citizen. They're just not a state of the Union. Meaning we haven't added them to the state of the Union, and they're not counted. That's why we don't have more than 50 states. And by keeping them there makes them responsible for the payments of certain things. That's why their taxes are much higher than ours. Oh, the madness of it all. No, no, no. If you focus on the major issue, if we were to fix that and change it, everything else will fall in place. What's the issue? Thinking that capitalism is the end. Because that's what we were taught. Capitalism is the greatest thing since sliced bread and it'll never go away. But the people that have got degrees and master's degrees in economics will tell you every economic system in human history is born, evolves over time, and dies. Just like us, we're born, we evolve, we die. We had primitive tribalism. It came, it evolved, it died. We moved to feudalism. Came and evolved, it died. French Revolution brought in capitalism. We had slavery. We had slavery, it evolved, it died, and was replaced by capitalism. Why? Because we believe that as the human race, we could do better. We could do better than feudalism. We could live without a king. We didn't need a king to, because they believed that if we don't have a king, that civilization would end and we'd all end up as animals in the jungle. And we survived. Same thing with slavery. We survived. It's called humans evolving, just like capitalism. Because in Europe, they have political parties, especially in Germany, that have a slogan saying, we could do better than capitalism. That idea that we can do better, that's what helped us out of slavery. It helped us get out of feudalism. Reasonably to assume it'll help us get out of capitalism. Just like everything else in human history. Why? Because we can do better. It's a crying shame that I got a report from Oxfam. 36 people in the world, the richest 36, have more wealth than the bottom 60% of this planet. And this planet, we're almost at 8 billion people. 36 people out of 8 billion. Which of you has a moral, ethical, or religious values to such a system? I usually say that to try to get these people to out-Jesus me. Like here in the United States, I think we have 800 billionaires. 800. Out of how many? 340 million. Again, which of you has an ethical, moral, or religious values to such a system? Case is over. You think Jesus would support a system like that? Me, I just try to make it to where if you're here and I'm talking, you're going to learn something, even though you may have heard it a few times. But it provokes you to think, because a lot of Americans think that they're the most greatest critical thinker in the world. And I used to too, until I got put in my place and learned how badly I wasn't a critical thinker. And even today, I don't think I'm the best critical thinker there is. I've improved. Yes. I've dramatically improved. But am I the best? Probably not. I know people that are way better than I am. But these MAGA people need, they in their minds, they thought that they could have a beer and be just like Donald Trump and relate to him. Never will fucking happen. Elon Musk, never happen. They cannot relate to me or you. They can't live what we would consider a normal life. What we do, we spend time with our family. We're at the house, we have a cookout, or we do this, we do that. We go to the grocery store, we go shopping for clothes or shopping for something. We do this sometimes on a weekly basis. We go shopping, we have our big circle of friends. We go to sporting events, mingle amongst the other parents and everything. Do you think these billionaires do that? No, they can't. I learned this because I went to Mar-a-Lago. Shit, this was before he was president. This was like in 2014. I was in Miami and I was odd hours. I was parked at the 575 truck stop before it turned into a junkyard. And I wanted to find something to do. And I looked around. I'm like, oh, there's Mar-a-Lago. I've heard so much about this place. I'll go check it out. Yeah, it cost me just under $400 a night. I stayed one night there. Dressed to the nines, had my leather coat on and a tie, went on down to the bar area. Billionaires' wives were there. The rest of the men, they probably went out to the golf course. I don't play golf. I went to the bar to check it out, see what was going on. And it was their billionaire wives. A lot of them were like 20, 30 years younger than their husband. And I was listening to this drunk billionaire's wife. Okay. In their mind, I didn't lie to them. Yeah, I owned a trucking company, my own, but it was only one truck. But they didn't know that. They were this woman was talking to me and she was almost in tears. She goes, I wish I could have friends, because one of her favorite TV shows, and when they do get to watch TV, she loved that show Friends. And I said, I'm sorry, I only saw maybe a couple episodes. I don't watch much TV. She goes, I wish I could have friends like that and live a life like that, but I can't. I'm like, why not? What's stopping you? Because I'm so well known. I said, ma'am, I don't know who you are. She goes, when you're the wife of a billionaire, you really can't go anywhere without being noticed. And it's almost like being a celebrity. You can't go anywhere. And I'm like, well, I can sort of understand that. She goes, you're not well known? I'm like, no. I just work. That's all. We had a long conversation. She told me all about it. And that's when I learned these people cannot function in normal society or live a life what we would consider normal. They don't do their own shopping. They don't do their own clothing shopping. They hire people to do that for them. Well, what do they do all day? Well, some of them do what Donald Trump does. He goes in the morning, probably takes a shower, puts that orange makeup on his face from Revlon, and make sure that it's not windy out, because if it's windy out, he's got to wear a baseball hat because his hair will blow straight up like Don King. After that, he puts on a suit. He's probably got thousands of suits just like that. It's the same old one. Or he puts on a polo shirt instead of his suit jacket and tie and shirt, and goes out and plays a lot of golf with his rich buddies. Spends time at the golf course or whatever. Doesn't spend time with family necessarily. Probably doesn't spend much time at all with family. Like I said, they don't live a normal lifestyle like what we would consider normal. When you become rich and famous, you can't function in society because you'll get recognized. Everybody wants to be rich and famous, but when they find out the crap that goes along with that, some people can't tolerate that. Some people can't handle being famous like that, where they're recognized no matter where they go. And if you think about it, that's going to be a pain in the ass. Me, maybe just for a moment, but that's it. But I would not want to become overly famous like that. That's why a lot of your famous actors, like one of the most famous one was John Wayne. John Wayne, you would not recognize in public because he did this on purpose. He would take his teeth out. He wouldn't wear a hat because later on he became bald pretty quickly. And he would just put on normal clothes like we would. and he would be in his hometown of DeSoto. The only people that would recognize him is the people who really knew him, that grew up with him. But anybody else would not have recognized John Wayne. And he did interviews, and he explained it. Yeah, I'd take my teeth out and do all this other stuff, and people wouldn't recognize me, and I enjoyed it. I was like a normal human being. But as big as a star as he was, he couldn't go anywhere. The only one that didn't learn that and died at an early age was James Dean. But he was the pretty boy type. Me, I'd rather have been Jimmy Dean. Reason is because I own the Jimmy Dean Sausage Company. Good breakfast food. And nobody gave a rat's ass who that Jimmy Dean was. That's the Jim Dean I would like to have been. Oh, well, I'm going to have to end this because I'm going to climb in the back and probably watch some TV and think of something else to rant about, and hopefully people would join in. I only had a few people come in, but I appreciate you guys coming in, taking the time, try to learn a little something. And until next time, probably won't be but another day or two. It'll be something else stupid that's going to happen. But hey, don't forget it. Blind man goes into an office and gets approved and gets it laminated and handed to him. He probably didn't know where to fucking grab it when they were handing it to him because he couldn't see. Blind man gets a concealed carry license. Brilliant. That right there says it all, folks. As a matter of fact, I was in Indianapolis when that took place. I was driving on the north side. I was heading up to Minnesota. But you guys have a good day. I'm going to get off here because my brain and everything else is wore the hell out. I hope I get some more sleep because I'm down until midnight tonight, and then I'll head to my 90 to deliver this load. The rest of the ice cream. Lieutenant Dan, ice cream. You guys have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Probably see you on somebody else's live stream. Bye-bye, guys.